Good morning, guys. It's me, V. I'm going to talk to you about my experiences with homelessness. I've been homeless in Edmonton, in Calgary, a little bit in Lethbridge, Vancouver, and the experiences that I faced, the difficulties and issues. Something that I really wanted to touch on because this is happening at the Picayune camp in Edmonton. When I lived in Calgary, I would, I was an alcoholic and an addict. Well, I'm still an alcoholic and an addict, but besides that, I I was homeless and I was living on the streets. I didn't, I was staying at the drop-in center and Alpha House and the Mustard Seed, and every time, before I stayed there though, when I would get intoxicated and too intoxicated in public, the cops would they would leave me at the drop-in center. They would leave me at Alpha House. I would wake up on a mat in Alpha House, and it's just kind of ridiculous how that happens so often, especially in Calgary. And now that we have the camp down here in Edmonton, it's happening there too. The cops are just leaving homeless people there and expecting them to deal with it when it should be the city that's dealing with it. A lot of these people have mental health issues and addiction problems like I did. And I've talked to other people. And this is funny because this woman that I was talking to in the past couple of weeks who told me some similar stories of how she'd wake up on Alpha House mats. And this woman's a white woman. She's Caucasian, or whatever you want to call it, be politically correct. But yeah, she said that she'd wake up frequently at Alpha House on the mats. And it's funny because her and I could joke about that kind of stuff, but it's not funny because the way that we deal with the issues like homelessness, addiction, mental health, it's wrong. We shouldn't just be leaving our problems on somebody's front door, because it's not fair to the camp. It's not fair to Alpha House. It's not fair to the drop-in center. I mean, yeah, granted, that's what some of those programs are for, but the way we just sweep these people under the rug and the way we're trying to deal with this problem, it's not working. The city of Edmonton is talking about getting hotel rooms for these people. That's a short-term answer for a long-term problem. The city of Edmonton, what they could do is allocate that money that they're getting or whatever from the city police and putting it into mental health programs and putting it into, opening up harm reduction housing in city of Edmonton properties. I know that the city of Edmonton owns houses. I know this for a fact because I've worked on plenty of them. I've worked in construction. I'm a roofer. Same with the city of Calgary. A lot of these major cities in Canada own a lot of housing, not just major commercial sites, but houses. that can be transferred into harm reduction housing, that can be transferred into health care housing that the city provides. And then they just, if they're going to keep privatizing our healthcare, then at least outsource the mental health care to create more jobs. It is simple. Use the city properties, turn those into mental health care homes or housing for the homeless people that have mental health issues that need to be taken care of, instead of just putting them all in one building and expecting them to be okay when they're not, because the way that we're dealing with these problems isn't working. We still have a rampant homelessness and addiction problem in the city. Not a day goes by where I don't walk through downtown and see needles, or, I was in downtown Calgary on Monday, and just needle after needle. I was at the train station and I watched a guy drop his bubble, his meth pipe out of his pocket, and he just left it there. And this was downtown city center, like downtown city hall. And I went and picked that pipe up and threw it in the garbage. It's not my responsibility to take care of that person or his problems, but it's up to the city. And they have so many solutions for this problem, especially the city of Edmonton. They want to put these people up in hotels, and then eventually they're going to take that away. So you're going to house these people for a few months and then take away their housing. So you're just going to create more of a problem, because these people are going to have issues trusting you, because you're going to house them in hotels that, like I said, it's a short-term problem for a short-term answer for a long-term problem. I mean, yeah, put them up in hotels, but, transfer the city of Edmonton housing into sober living housing, harm reduction living, actual harm reduction living that's monitored. Not somewhere like Dwayne's house that gets destroyed, but somewhere where people can get actual help, where they can maintain their addiction and talk through whatever it is that they need to talk through. And then, when they're able to go to treatment and fix their problem, instead of letting them run around on the streets. Why don't we use the resources that we have that are readily available? City of Edmonton, City of Calgary, City of Lethbridge, City of Red Deer, all those majors, all those cities have public property that they should be using, that they could be using. That public property could be housing these people with mental health issues and drug addiction problems. And if we're going to outsource this stuff, the city should be getting these people on AISH, getting AISH to cover their housing and their mental health care. It's simple. We have all the fucking answers. And if you say that we don't, and we have to go through all these fucking loopholes, fucking let's get it started. Because what we're doing right now, these privatized homeless programs, are not helping. They're just recycling our homeless. That's all they're doing. You put them in treatment programs that are addiction focused and faith-based. You're giving them a false idea of recovery because you put them in an addiction program that only deals with one of the problems, not the mental health or the trauma that they're running from. So yeah, these homeless people, they go to treatment, they come out, they go live in sober living housing, they go whatever, that haven't dealt with their issues, and then they relapse, and then they're back on the streets, and then they're back in jail, and it's not solving any fucking problem what we're doing. So let's use our resources. Get these city of Edmonton houses monitored. If we're going to keep, healthcare shit privatized, we'll, have strict rules on these private healthcare institutions, whatever you want to call them, so that they don't create certificate mills, because that's what we do. We just have a bunch of certificate mills that don't help anyone. I mean, I don't know how many people have fucking marbles from all the treatment centers that they've finished. I have one from Sunrise, one from King Haven. Pretty sure they gave one out at 1835. I know a lot of other people that have gone through all of those treatment centers that have like a bag full of fucking marbles, because they just go through these marble certificate mills and they come out and they haven't dealt with their problems. So our tax dollars, my tax dollars, your tax dollars, it's all going into this recycled system that isn't working. And they say that I was reading in the Buffalo Jump, it's a secret act in the 1980s, that they were trying to abolish the Indian Act, or not the Indian Act, but just a lot of the benefits that we get. So there is a loophole in that leaves provinces in charge of Indigenous healthcare. So when people think that Indigenous healthcare is federal, it's mostly provincial. So the provinces need to step it up in our mental health care and addiction programs. They need to step it up in our sober living housing, our mental health care programs. We need to integrate those with our addiction programs. And we have all the resources readily available. I mean, the city could be making money off of this, but they're not. They have fucking houses all over the city, all over the fucking city. Those could be transferred into sober living houses for Indigenous men. Those can be transferred into sober living houses for families. Those can be transferred into mental health care facilities for, our homeless addicts that we just put on the streets. Ones that get left at PQ and camp. The ones like me that would get left at the drop-in center, at the MAP program, at Alpha House. So if the city of Edmonton really wants to deal with this homeless program, put these homeless people in hotels. Gut these houses that the city owns and these apartments and these warehouses, and turn them into, shelters, turn them into mental health care housing for people with schizophrenia, with bipolar disorder, with all these issues that, puts them on the streets because they're unable to work, unable to think, unable to do a lot of normal things. And then in these housing programs, give them counseling. Have counselors there ready, available. Get them integrated into society, doing normal things. Get businesses of the city to hire these people to create income, to create what's needed for the city. Give them education, give them jobs. Instead of sweeping them under the rug, instead of letting them camp out outside and stepping over them, give them a hand up. Like, actually give them a hand up. Like, don't just push them aside, help them up. Like, that's what's fucking needed. They don't need a hand out, they need a hand up. They need a place to heal. They need a place to become better people. Because we don't have that. When I was homeless, I went from couch to couch after I got kicked out of the Dream Center. I lived in someone's backyard in a trailer, camper. I slept on a wooden box for better part of 6 months when I moved to Edmonton. And we don't have anything to help us. And the city has all this stuff at their hands, readily available, that can be turned into resources. Instead of selling those houses, it's what the city's trying to do. Why don't we create residual income by maintaining these mental health care programs through these houses, by maintaining these addiction programs through these houses, by maintaining these rehabilitation housing for criminals? Because a lot of those other people that are homeless, a lot of them get out of the pen or get out of jail with nowhere to go, with nothing but $1,000 that welfare gives them in order to go get a place to stay, but that $1,000 doesn't cover anything. So then they relapse. They go out and they use and they waste all their fucking money, and they end up staying at homeless shelters because they got nowhere else to go. So all these big cities in Alberta need to step their game up. Suggestions for that: turn city of Edmonton or city of Calgary or whatever city it is, but turn that city's properties into not just homeless shelters, but homeless recovery programs where people can go and deal with their mental health issues, to deal with their addiction, to deal with their trauma, and a safe place, and give them life skills. And instead of, just giving them a bunch of shit and saying, here, take care of yourself, and expecting them to take care of themselves, because that's what a lot of programs do. I think it's Homeward Trust here in Edmonton. They help you out with a lot. They subsidize your housing, and they do what they can to help you, but there isn't enough like that. There isn't enough programs like that. And it sucks too, because you go into a lot of the housing that these people are, for Homeward Trust are put into. And a lot of them in really gross areas. I know a dozen people down on 107th that got out of treatment, that were homeless, that wanted to get into Homeward Trust, but the only places that they could get were greasy slumlord apartment buildings down on 107th or down here on Stony Plain. So we need to get these bigger rental companies in on helping these people. If they have to create screening to help people coming in from places like Homeward Trust or any of those other programs, then so be it. But we got to stop putting these people in shitty areas like 107th Ave, 118 Ave. We got to give them a fucking fighting chance because it's still oppressing them. They're like, hey, we'll take you out of the shithole that you were in, and then we're going to move you over here a block away. So you can still look at all that shit that you were looking at while you were in the shit, but over here in a house or an apartment. And you can still watch all this shit going on around you. And it's got to change. The city, the country, the province, whatever you want to call it, it's got to change. And these are suggestions of how. So again, turn city property into sober living housing, mental health care housing, harm reduction housing. All that money that's getting allocated from the police should be allocated into social work and mental health care programs for these addicts, homeless, and people with mental health issues. Because it's needed. Take them out of the hood and put them somewhere good, because what we're doing right now isn't working. And for camp, the Pecuin, Camp Pecuin, whatever, downtown, it's only going to get worse because the cops don't know how to deal with the problem. So they're going to leave the problem up to you because they're tired of dealing with the problem. I witnessed this in Calgary, being homeless in Calgary and having places like that to go. Places like Alpha House, places like the Drop-In Center. What sucks is that these places are overcrowded and we have the resources to fix those problems. We have resources and housing available for these ex-cons that have nowhere else to go, so they stay on the streets because they're addicted to drugs, and it's hard for them to get a job because how do you count for being gone for a year missing on your resume? Not all of them are good at lying. So yeah, create these programs. Open up housing. Create jobs. The city has all of this stuff readily available and they're not using it. The city owns so much fucking property and so many buildings because of bankruptcy and all this other shit. And they're not using its resources. They could use some of the warehouses downtown and convert those into MAT programs Um, not programs specifically for, people that are intoxicated, not programs for people that have mental health care issues. The city could benefit from all of this stuff. All the stuff that I'm suggesting, the city could benefit from it. And it could create work, give people tax breaks, give big corporation tax breaks by having them hire, these people in any way that they could. We need to solve our all these problems, and these are just some of the answers or some of the solutions that I have to offer, just because of my experience with homelessness and addiction, and these are the suggestions that could be made, that are being made, that the city could do to reduce our homeless problem, reduce the theft problem, reduce crime, reduce homelessness, reduce addiction. All of this stuff can be dealt with through the city, and it's trying to outsource it. So there you go, City of Edmonton. I'm going to give you more details on all this stuff later, but those are the details that's just some of what I have to suggest for changing the homelessness issue in Edmonton and Calgary. Yeah, that's just from my experience and whatnot. So yeah, I hope you guys have a good day. I'm gonna do the same.